Code 5. A kit must be at least 6 moons old to become an apprentice. It seems so obvious now that kits should not be allowed to fight until they are properly trained and strong enough to take on full-grown warriors. But it was not always like this. It took the love of a mother cat to put a stop to the destruction of fragile lives. The Queens unite. Attack! Jump! Swipe! Roll! No! Roll! Daisytail winced as Specklepaw scrambled to his feet and shook his head, panting. He looked dazed, and there was a bead of blood swelling at the tip of one ear. His mentor, Slatepelt, nudged him toward the other apprentice in the training circle, Adderpaw. Try again, Slatepelt instructed gently. Daisytail couldn't watch as Specklepaw launched himself at his rival. It seemed like only a moon ago that his freckled, pale brown head had been nuzzled into her belly, searching for milk. Adderpaw had been training for several moons longer, and he looked full-grown next to Specklepaw, whose head barely reached his shoulder. There was a thud behind Daisytail, and she bit her tongue to stop herself from wailing out loud. "Did you see that?" Specklepaw called. "Did you, Mom? Did you? I pushed Adderpaw right over." Daisytail turned around and forced herself to purr approvingly. She could tell from the look exchanged by Adderpaw and Slatepelt that the older apprentice had deliberately let the little cat win. "Well done, Nutkin," she called. A tuft of fur on Specklepaw's head was sticking up, and she longed to go over and lick it flat. "You'll be a warrior before you know it." "Before my milk has dried up," she added silently. Slatepelt nodded to her. "He's learning fast. Which is good, because it looks like we'll be fighting ShadowClan again soon. They've been seen stealing rabbits in broad daylight, and Hazelstar won't let them get away with it." Daisytail didn't answer. Her kit was too small to take part in a real battle. He couldn't even take on his own clanmates, who would never try to rip his pelt, tear his eyes, claw his ears into shreds. "Daisytail, are you okay?" A dark brown face was peering anxiously out of the entrance to the nursery. Hawkfoot's 3 kits were half a moon younger than Specklepaw. They would be made apprentices any day now, and kept bouncing around their nests, practicing their battle moves. "There's going to be another battle with ShadowClan," Daisytail burst out. "I can't let Specklepaw fight, I just can't!" "You don't have a choice," Hawkfoot pointed out. "He's an apprentice now. This is what he's been trained for." Daisytail lifted her head. "And if your kits are apprentices by then, will you let them go? Knowing they'll face blood-hungry ShadowClan warriors?" Hawkfoot prodded a bramble tendril with her forepaw. "It's our duty to provide the clan with new warriors," she mewed. "And is it our duty to see those warriors die, before they're full-grown?" Daisytail challenged. She turned and stalked away from the nursery. "Where are you going?" "To put a stop for this once and for all." A bright orange sun stretched its paws over the edge of the moor, turning the sky above to pink and cream. Dew sparkled like starlight in the shadows cast by rocks and gorse bushes. On one of the rocks, Hazelstar stood to address his warriors. They stretched in a line on either side of him, facing the ShadowClan border, marked by a line of stunted trees. "Warriors of WindClan!" Hazelstar cried. There was an indignant murmur from farther along the line, and Hazelstar's whisker twitched. "And apprentices! ShadowClan is stolen from us one too many times. We will teach them that WindClan's borders are strong, that they will be defended with claw and tooth, and our prey protected for our clan alone." The cats yowled in support, and the grass flickered with the shadows of lashing tails. Like an echo, a yowl came from the trees on the other side of the border. The grass beneath the trees stirred, and a line of ShadowClan warriors stepped out. A white-furred cat with hard green eyes stood in the center. "Are you sure about that, Hazelstar?" he sneered. "Some of your warriors look awfully small." His gaze swept over the smallest WindClan apprentices, who suddenly looked even tinier beside their clanmates. "I'd say we're evenly matched, Blizzard Star," Hazelstar replied calmly. He glanced toward the cats at the end of the ShadowClan line, some of whom still had the fuzz of kit fur around their ears. Blizzard Star curled his lip. "We'll put that to the test, shall we?" he snarled. "ShadowClan, attack!" "Stop!" Daisytail leaped onto the rock she had been hiding behind. Hawkfoot scrambled up beside her. "We won't let you fight!" Blizzard Star stared at the queens in astonishment. Are all your cats this scared of combat, Hazel Star? It's not fear, called a cat from the Shadow Clan line. She stepped into the open, her amber eyes reflecting the sun. Oakleaf, what in the name of StarClan are you doing? Blizzard Star demanded. Daisytail jumped down from the rock and padded into the open space between the battle lines. The grass felt cool and springy beneath her paws. She would not let it turn red with her own kit's blood. We're stopping this battle, she announced. To her relief, her voice didn't give away how much she was trembling inside. Some of these apprentices are barely weaned from their mother's milk. They are too young to die, too young to fight, and too young to be treated like full-grown warriors. The Shadow Clan queen walked to join her. Daisytail came to see me with her clanmate Hawkfoot 2 sunrises ago. She told me that she didn't want to let her kit go into battle when he was too small to fight his own clanmates, and she asked me if I would let my kit die like this too. When Blizzard Star let out a questioning grunt, she turned and explained. I met Daisytail once at a gathering, when we had both just learned we were expecting kits. She remembered me and knew I would not want my kit to fight any more than she did. Hazeltail turned to Daisytail. What are you saying? He queried, looking baffled. That we should never fight again? Do you really think that this is how clans should live? Daisytail shook her head. No! I know battle is a part of our life. It's what warriors train for. But they should only be asked to fight when they're old enough to stand a chance of winning. What's the point of training kids so young that they'll be lost in their first conflict? Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Specklepaw duck behind Adderpaw. Embarrassment prickled from every hair on his pelt, and he refused to meet her gaze. Inwardly, Daisytail gave an amused purr. One day he'd understand, and he'd still be alive to understand why his mother did this. Oakleaf trotted across the grass and stood side by side with Daisytail and Hawkfoot. We are united, Blizzard Star, she told him. She nodded toward the line, and several other she-cats padded out. Daisytail dipped her head to greet them. Some of these queens were too old to have had kits as young as hers, but they all felt the same. The youngest cat should not be expected to fight. The grass whispered softly as Wind Clan she-cats joined them, falling in beside their Shadow Clan rivals. Daisytail held her breath and looked from Hazel Star to Blizzard Star and back again. The leaders could still order their warriors into battle. All that would happen would be that she would be forced to watch her kit fall beneath the paws of a giant Shadow Clan warrior, never to get up again. Hazel Star, our queens have spoken. Blizzard Star stepped out from his battle line, looking hard at his rival leader. Should we ignore them and fight? The Ginger Tom paused, letting his gaze rest on the group of she-cats before glancing at his tiny warriors. Then he faced Blizzard Star again. What sense is there to losing the future of our clans, when if we let them grow stronger, battles will be more easily won? Daisytail almost purred out loud. Hazel Star had managed to make this sound like a threat to Shadow Clan rather than a decision to decrease his battle line. Blizzard Star nodded. If you are going to remove your youngest cats, then so must I. Shadow Clan cannot be accused of being unfair in battle. I would never suggest such a thing, Hazel Star murmured. He turned to Daisytail. How do you propose that we make sure all clans keep their youngest cats from battle? He asked. Daisytail gulped. Was she really being consulted by the leader of her clan? She thought rapidly. I think there should be an addition to the warrior code. The kits must be... She looked up and down the battle line, judging which cats looked big enough to take on a fully trained warrior. 6 moons old, before they're allowed to train as apprentices. Oakleaf brushed the tip of her tail against Daisytail's shoulder. Until then, they must live within the camp, where the queens can be responsible for their safety. Hazel Star nodded. That makes sense to me. Thank you, Daisytail. And thank you, Oakleaf. He tipped his head to the Shadow Clan queen. Blizzard Star, are we agreed? The Shadow Clan leader bowed his head. We are. We will take this to the gathering at the next full moon. Daisytail gazed at Specklepaw, who looked ready to burst with frustration. There will be other battles, my little warrior. But not yet. Not until you are ready.